2025 was certainly a momentous year for our country. I think in terms of governance, we had, to be frank with you, gotten to a point where the country was on the brink. And many say that one wonders what would have happened if the MPP had won the last elections. And I think certainly that it wasn't going to be good for our democracy, because we had gotten to a point where almost everything was down. The economy was down, confidence in people had gotten down, expectations, the situation had become so hard for many people in terms of the trust for our governance system was down. So we were at a point where many were even contemplating what could happen. Would we go down the path of other countries if these things were to continue? And indeed, even before then, we had engagements with some government entities, about whether or not there could be possibilities of a coup d'etat in this country. And if you recall, at some point when the CD was so much misbehaving, the president himself at the time had to make a public appeal to our military not to think about intervening. And President Mahama, former President Mahama, then candidate Mahama, had to make the same appeal. So I would say that at least in the interest of stability, continuity of our Fourth Republic and all of that, what happened by way of the 2024 elections perhaps got us at least to be stable as a country. And the results, I think, spoke for itself in terms of the outcome. For the first time, we have one party controlling 2/3 of parliament. We have a leader who won so overwhelmingly. So in terms of the endorsement, public support, and then all of that, I think President Mahama has it all. And as you rightly said, for the first time, we have a female vice president, and that means something in terms of the women empowerment, the gender dynamics of our governance and all of that. That certainly is great. Of course, in terms of resetting, a lot had to happen. Whether we called it resetting or otherwise, a lot had to change based on what was happening. The President Akufo-Addo government had gotten to a point where it was basically we wouldn't listen to anyone. We would do whatever we want, even as the country was sinking. It was almost a case of we are doing what we want, to hell with you. So what happened, whether we call it reset or not, that is what it is. Coincidentally, the NDC's manifesto, was titled Resetting Ghana,
right.
Agenda for Jobs, and all of that. And so far, I think, I would say that it's not been bad. We've seen some positive developments. But for me, I think that the signals to take us to where we should be, we are yet to see that. As Samson and Winston were talking about the issues about corruption and the plans and the laws and so on, I think three things, and for me, the number one thing is values as a country. Something, I think you call it ethics. That's why you are introducing ethics as part of this framework that is being developed. And then, of course, systems. And the third, for me, would be the laws. If the values are not there, the systems are not there, we can have 10,000 laws. It won't work. Because at the end of the day, the person going to make the arrest is somehow implicated or conflicted because they themselves have to also find a way out.
Our businesses are up and running. I, in particular, had the opportunity to dedicate a bit more time in my firm for pro bono work to help people who cannot afford legal services. So it's been fulfilling. I've also dedicated some time to service of God and country. If you've heard about the famous Govern WhatsApp platform.
Yes.
Yeah. Where we are fashioning out an anti-corruption action plan for the country. Because you see, from where I sit, when I accepted to join that 60-member team to fashion out a plan after the 2014 plan expired in 2024, was because I have come to realize that corruption is our bane. If we're able to reduce corruption and cut it to the barest, this country can be the beautiful country that we all envisage. I'm looking at the big push of the government and asking myself, how much is the government targeting to spend? how much are we losing every year? And when those who give us money say that each year we are losing in excess of $3 billion US, that is not just a figure. That is first-class road network to my village in Gambivugo. Not just the village, the main road that will ensure that people who are producing in their farmlands can bring the food to the city center. That is hundreds of done dams that we're looking for.
So coming to 2025, it was a question of whoever won, how were they able to manage the economy to begin to fix what had been broken. And then we come into 2020 with 2025 with the sort of victory that John Mahama got. And because this is a news review, we sort of need to pause for a second. The 2024 elections produced a series of firsts. I think it's the elections that broke almost all records. The first time a former president who had lost power stood for re-election and won, never happened before. First time an election delivered not only a supermajority, I call it ultra supermajority, because in the wake of the actual election outcome, they won several, they won in the by-elections in the interim. Those who, the independents are also on their side. So it's really huge supermajority, 2/3. First time it's happened. The first time, MPP lost seats in places that they've never lost seats in. I mean, elections in the past always threw up, but the sheer number of seats that the NDC could only dream about like 15 years ago, NDC managed to win them. If you go to Ashanti region, there were a few seats there that they won that everybody was shocked about. If you go to Dominica, was another one that everybody was shocked about. We were all surprised when it was a tsunami of biblical proportions. I mean, when it was, the chips were down, Winston and I were in the studio, and the day I saw that was a problem, the minute I saw there was a problem, was when our good friend Andy Japa Mesa lost. I mean, like, Andy Japa Mesa. I mean, fine gentlemen, you didn't think that even if there's a tsunami, some people will be preserved. For him, I never saw it coming.
I think that the day Ghanaians see through that mirage, you will suddenly see a very enlightened electorate that makes decisions differently. What am I talking about? I think that we believe that elections are a very high stakes activity in Ghana. Make or break, win or lose.
Yeah?
Because whomever takes the trophy, whomever wins the election, wins everything. But it's a mirage. Because since the dawn of the Fourth Republic, no election has changed Ghana. No party has come into government and transformed the country.
It's not a debatable.
Your life doesn't change based on who wins the election. Nothing fundamental about who you are, what you aspire for, what you are capable of, changes because of who wins the election. But we are yet to see that. I didn't think John Mahama needed a honeymoon at all. He'd been president before, he'd done it for 4 years. He wasn't new to the job. He had 8 years to lay his plans of how to come and do better. So for me, his accountability should have begun from day one. No honeymoon. But he came along and actually fulfilled some of the promises he made. That makes a pleasant change.
He actually was greeted with a crisis, with the energy crisis that it made.
From day one.
Yeah.
From day one, the lights were going to go off.
Yeah.
He fixed it. Good for him. The lights have stayed on all year, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations to him for that. And you see, these things ought to be normal. These ought not be the things that we praise,
Right.
right?
Right.
But after what we've just been through, it becomes like superhuman achievements.
Yeah. Right then.
Right? So let me wrap up with this.
Yeah.
For me, John Mahama's first year started with that, all the pomp and promise of that inauguration ceremony, because we had been traumatized.
Elections are important because, look, we went broke as a country, completely broke. We're getting to a point like some other country where fuel had to be rationed for essential workers, right? You have an election that has somewhat changed that circumstance. We've had the CD at least managed to be stable for a while. We don't know if that stability is organic. We can debate that. But look at how things were being run. Look at the nature of inflation.
If you don't mind,
okay? The way inflation was running up.
Is it on the CPO?
To some extent,
no, let me just,
elections do matter. And I believe that we have leaders who think beyond, the thievery and what they can get personally. So we have John Mahama, and we're thinking about a legacy term, and he clearly knows the burden of the expectations on him, the constitutional changes that are expected.
Could you see the point he's advancing?
They will change the architecture of this country forever.
History tells us that elections don't change our lives.
I'm just making that point just to support the point that he hasn't changed. It sort of get worse, at least over the last 16 years.
But we think they do, right? That's the mirage. We think the elections change our lives. They don't. The only thing that changes is who has access to stealing. That's what changes, right? The people who rob us change. That's it, right? So, in essence, because we think everything rides on the election, while nothing actually rides on it, we are able to muster emotion to the level of violence, believing that we have to affect the outcome of the election by hook or crook, not realizing that if we stay at home and let things take their course, our lives will remain pretty much the same. So with every by-election, we decide that everything rides on it, because this is what will tell us what the nation thinks of us. This is what will tell us whether the choice we made in the election recently was the right one or the wrong one. This is what will validate what we've just come through. So let's throw everything at it. These by-elections were inconsequential.
Today's economic environment favors us. It's one of the things we're not talking about most. And one of the things we must realize is that in the global architecture, when it favors you...
You mean commodity prices? Let's be more...
I'm getting there. Not just commodity price. Yeah, but the commodity price is also because of who is in charge of the United States of America. It's something we don't talk about the most. People don't trust the policies of Donald Trump. And because the world don't trust what Donald Trump will do next, the world has found solace in gold, which we produce. It works for us. But you see, we're missing a point. Because the commodity prices are favorable, in the past when we engaged in future trading with cocoa, and mind you, cocoa board in the past was not governed well. The good news for Ghana is that Donald Trump is still president for the next 3 years. His policies, you don't know tomorrow. Once he makes the next decision, a bit ad hoc decision, which affects America, the world will go into cocoa. And the world now, there's a lot of research backing gold-backed currency.
And just to circle back to the questions about reviewing this year, it comes to the question of whether or not JM, for somebody who's lost an election before, at the time when he lost, nobody had lost an election by that margin, has he learned the lessons? Because again, when he took over, in his early year,
Don't worry,
it was smooth. I'm just coming to a question, and I guess we can weigh in on that, which is, has he learned the lessons of his last term before this one to build the buffers with the current positive world economic climate ahead of shocks that may or may not come down the line? I think for me,
and this is also because, and also Evans, Winston, I also hear you say that Oforiatta, as though he was quite perfect for a period, right? He was quite okay for a period.
Don't worry, when I answer Evans' question, you will understand. I have just told you that the good news we have is that Donald Trump is still president. And if Donald Trump is still president, the world economic architecture is still unstable. And the gold board has done a good job, because the moment you get into the gold board and you say, they're able to deal with the smuggling, they've not solved all the problem. They haven't. but they've dealt with a bit of the smuggling that was happening in the past, where people smuggled gold out of this country. And so we had conversations about how we had exported more gold to a particular country than we had officially declared we had exported in this country. The point is that we are not engaged in import substitution, the very thing that drives our inflation. In fact, if you watch critically, a lot of the things that have driven down our inflation is the things we import. Because, why? The market queens go and buy eggs at 30, 40 cedis and go and sell at 70 cedis. Years ago, we're buying the same thing. They just won't reduce it. Seasonal products will go up. We're happy the rains have been with us. So I say that, look, this is a good year. Take it, work towards the next year, and see how you go about it.
Many mama na wasi. I hear video no awie. Na won so saying na wadwen eyewo. The journalist omo eken eno no. Ye ka se wo grade His Excellency John Dramani Mahama ne 1 year ya. E de be asem na wo beka. Amamu na koyi and I say ankoyi 2026. What should we expect? Tell wadwen e wo comment section ho. Na se wonya unsubscribe yen so subscribe. Like a video we know we so share ma wonu bi no so onya bi. Anyway, me da wase nyakopo nhira me de wo ebehye bi se de makra. Bye bye.